no rules. Do the lower score. There's one rule.
All right. Dude, this is going to be a hot button conversation.
100%. And
on multiple fronts.
Yeah, 100%. And for those of you joining us, welcome to the No Mulligans Podcast here in the studio at Franklin Bridge. I'm Jack this time. And this is Scott next to me. And Scott, for those people who are just now tuning in to No Mulligans for the first time, why don't you just say very quickly where you come from, who you are, and why you're qualified to be teaching these people over a podcast.
Well, so for those that are newer or have just started taking lessons or are about to or just tuning in for the first time, I'm in my 14th year of teaching and coaching, spent 10 years learning under 2004 National Teacher of the Year, who knows how many awards and taught who knows how many PGA and LPGA Tour players. Hank Johnson, back in Birmingham, Alabama, did that for 10 years. Written multiple books on course strategy with a little bit of spin on mindset, and fixed a whole lot of golf swings. Got one national title, a couple All-Americans, college course records, team records, school records, and a whole bunch of junior tournament wins. And lots of strokes dropped. I wish I had tracked like every stroke drop since the first time I started teaching. That would be kind of a cool stat.
That would be cool. But that's why we're here, right? Is to improve the game. Yeah, to make you better and to improve your game. And I feel like there's a lot of golf podcasts out there that kind of cover the, what's happening in golf, pop culture, all that kind of stuff. But I really think that there's not too many golf podcasts that are really aimed at making you better and making you better through a mindset and not just, you want to be here at your swing versus here at your swing and here in your swing. So that's why we've been doing this for the last 2 years.
The topic we'll get into, not this episode, but the next one that y'all will hear in a week. We're really going to dive into probably one of my biggest frustrations as a teacher and coach. That is a constant area of improvement for me at this point. So we'll get into that, but I don't know. I'm just here to make you better. I'm trying to help as many people as I possibly can, and the podcast allows me to reach broadly beyond here, whether you know me personally or not. We're here to make you better and have some fun doing it.
100%. And I mean, that's why we've been doing it for over 200 episodes now. It's like, it feels good.
And there's some awesome podcasts that are more about entertainment, and they'll bring in tour players to talk about their games, and hopefully we'll have that here one day as well. We'll have one of my mini tour guys on here in
3 weeks,
three episodes from now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about that, and we'll talk about him here in a little bit too.
Well, we're talking today about the stuff that's happened in the early part of the season in golf, specifically with the players and with Scotty Scheffler. Also, this new USGA rollback that's happening right now. So we're going to be talking about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of like, my brain just tried to split into two different directions. Like,
yeah, I was trying to.
I got kind of stuck on Scheffler for a second.
Okay, yeah. Like, then we're going to be talking about this new rule change though that's coming out, and Justin Thomas has already come out and talked on the topic. But before we go into that, our preferred club manufacturer, Srixon. If you're watching us on YouTube, by the way, go ahead and look up No Mulligans on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. If you're on Apple Podcast listening, we'd love for you to rate this podcast 5 stars, subscribe, and to leave a comment. It really helps us. And then if you're on Spotify, just follow the podcast. We'd really appreciate it. But thanks so much. But if you're on YouTube watching, you see Scott's bag behind us, and you just got your new sticks in, man.
I did.
You got your brand new sticks.
I did. Should we go ahead and do a quick run through what's through the bag, and we'll leave people hanging with the why for a future podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Really quickly. Let's go through what's in the bag.
So top to bottom. So if we go driver.
Got the ZX5 Mark II.
ZX5 Mark II, hazardous black, 6.5 X-Flex shaft, at 45.5 inches, 9.5 degrees. So looks pretty. It's a pretty club, man. It's a great club too. So price point's great for the consumer, which is fantastic. And there's a big promo going right now if you buy a club before the end of the month on drivers, you can turn your driver in. You'll get your trade-in value for your driver plus $100. And if you're a River Club member, you're going to get that 10% off too, because that's just your stock membership. You get 10% off the merchandise in the shop. So
Huge.
Come out and do that. We have Elijah would be happy to get you fit. Get that in before March 31st. Get that deal.
What else you got?
So then let's go to what do I want to do next? Let's go irons. So longest iron in my set right now is a 7-iron.
Crazy.
So I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I like hybrids and fairway woods. Two, I don't practice a whole lot. I do have plans to want to do that more this year. But I decided to kind of, speaking of rolling back, I'm putting more difficult clubs for me to hit in my bag. So I've got the Z Forge 2, basically Matsuyama's iron, with steel fiber, or not steel fiber. These are the KBS Tour Light irons or shafts. So standard length. So I had much longer clubs before, and I think for the time being, that was what I needed to improve my golf swing a little bit. But very difficult to hit, very critical of my errors, which I want. So when I'm playing from a practice standpoint, the little bit I do practice, and I can handle that through a 7-iron. I can manage my game well enough to kind of make do through those clubs. New low plus irons or wedges. So I've got the steel fiber I-80.
Low plus meaning a lower bounce.
Yeah, but with a little extra oomph, without getting into details of it. But they're fantastic. I like the low plus. I like low bounce wedges for my golf game. So these are half-inch longer than standard.
And you really like to spin the ball on the greens.
Right. So I've got a 50. Is that right? Yeah, I got a 50 mid and then 56 low plus and 60 low. So my low is 6 degrees of bounce, super low bounce, but I only use it out of the bunker primarily. So then this is where I'll go to the putter. So went heavier with the putter, but a lot shorter. So some of you are familiar. I've had the arm lock, which I think is the putter that the tour should take away, which is a USGA ruling thing, not a PGA Tour thing. But this combo shaft. So Callaway's done this as well in their shafts for their putting. Gives a little more stability to the face. I've got the HB Soft Milled 11, little mallet style, heavier but shorter. So 33.5 inches, back to the same length I had in college. And just a standard kind of mid-size grip. I think people have grips that are too big on their putters by and large. So went shorter. I'm a good putter with whatever putter I have in my hand. So the long one, was a. That's not a statement of cockiness. It's just
it's just the truth.
It's just something I'm really good at and enjoy doing. So, but back to the same length I had in college. So that's gonna be, you're gonna see me hunched over and look like I'm putting with a kid's club at 6'6". Then things get a little funky here in the middle of the set. So I go to so those are stiff flex in my irons, and then I also have stiff in my hybrids. So I've got a 6 hybrid, 5 hybrid, 6.0 hazardous red in both of those. Yeah, you can show that. Yeah. But nothing too fancy there. So keeping the stiff flex, going to the hybrids, that's fine.
One thing I really like about these Mark IIs is that they have the matte black face. Or, excuse me, like head to them.
Yeah.
And so it looks really nice, especially if you're playing a nice white golf ball behind the matte black. And it's not shiny, too. It's not like the piano gloss so that the light doesn't catch it weird.
Yep. I love the matte finishes on drivers. So it reminds me of the Ping driver. That look, very matte finished, not the shiny finish. So then this is where things get interesting, right? So I've got stiff flex in my irons and wedges with a steel fiber in my wedges, graphite in my hybrids. Irons, I have that KBS Tour Light. Then this is where things get crazy. I have a regular flex shaft in my 5 wood and 7 wood.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't make the right movement, I'll overhook these.
Mm-hmm.
But I love a left miss. A left miss is easy for me to move into the swing that I need to make. So, and I hit them the distance that I want to, and I hit them well, and I like hitting fairway woods high.
Which turns you into a one-way miss player, yep.
That's correct. And I played two-way miss in college, so I still had some fear with that with my old clubs, especially when I get into the longer clubs.
Yeah.
So by going to hybrids, I'm okay having a little bit of a right miss once in a while with an iron because that's an easy fix for me and I can play that. But with these longer clubs at my height, I would love to always know it's only going to go one way.
That makes sense.
Not because I'm trying to eliminate the right side. I'm just trying to have a biased miss so that I can move my golf swing. I feel comfortable moving it into the movement that I want to make without the fear of the other miss. Even if I don't have the other miss with a different fit, I need to have the feel and sensation that it's not going to go right if I make the movement that I want.
And we've always talked about on the podcast when we're talking about misses, having that dial, right? You can turn it all the way to the left or all the way to the right. And when we're playing with this one-way miss, it's like we've got it in the middle, and all we can really turn it is one way, which is nice.
Yeah, and the clubs I had before, I could hit those straight as well, and I could have a left miss with those too, but I could also occasionally have a right miss if I'm not fully committed.
Yeah.
These, if I'm not fully committed, it's going to go left.
Yeah.
And so that's an easier commit for me. It allows me to stay assertive in my motion, which sounds weird, right? So I've got an X flex in the driver. Fairway woods go all the way down to a regular flex. Now, most of the time I'm not going to be using those off the tee. It's going to go driver to a hybrid, or I put something fun in my set that's designed to stay.
So we talked about you have a regular flex, an X flex in your driver.
Right. A stiff flex in my irons.
Stiff flex in your irons and your wedges. And now you told me you've got a 3X stiff shaft in your
2-iron. So, Jack, you can show them this. This is a steel fiber X flex 2-iron that is, we did a couple of things to it. One, we kept it steel fiber so it wasn't too crazy stiff. So the steel fiber with the graphite fibers and steel fibers kind of woven in there together to keep it just a touch softer. But this club is not designed to go left, and it's not designed to go up. So this is a right miss only club, and if it does go left, that's fine. It's also not a far club as far as you would think hitting a 2-iron would go.
So this is like a Whistling Straits old course kind of club.
That's right. Yeah. So if I need to punch out from underneath something, I can. So it's an X flex. It's done. We did a couple things. One is we hard stepped it, which sometimes I get this backwards. It's a 3-iron shaft in a 2-iron. Which makes it play stiffer. So that's the 2X. Then we cut it a half an inch to make it play even stiffer. So it's stiff. It's extra stiff. And I don't hit it very high.
And for those of you out there who think that maybe this could be a club that could suit your game, it's a really tough one. But one thing that I think, as far as if somebody wanted to go out there and get this, one thing I think that Srixon did well in this ZX utility iron is this is a 2-iron, 18 degrees of loft, but they put a sole on the club that looks super forgiving. Yeah. If you were to go and hit it, and so it gives you a little bit more confidence when you're laying it down, feeling like it's going to come through the turf.
Maxed out for me, that thing is. Whoops, dropped my phone. Maxed out for me. That's good bloopers, right?
Right.
Maxed out for me, that's probably going to be 260 total all the way out. Again, the theme through these clubs, with the exception of wedges, putter, and driver. So wedges, putter, and driver, those are really set up for me to – I've got the forgiveness in the driver. It's X-Flex. I'm 120 to 122 mile-an-hour driver club head speed, so that fits. It's straight, which I like. And then with my wedges and my putter, we're in good shape there with just clubs I love to perform with. So they're fantastic. But the rest of the set is you have to make the swing you want to make in order to hit it well. So it's a real challenge for me. So when I do hit golf balls, like if I make as good of a golf swing as I can possibly make, I'll hit this 2-iron. Beautiful. 260, very straight, very low. Got a little bit of height to it. But wonderful setup for me. For a different reason, I don't play as much, so I get to play around with my sets and have some fun with it.
If you were to, before we move on to what we're going to talk about here at the USGA, if you had to pull that 2-iron out on any hole here at Franklin Bridge, what would you, or where would you pull it out at?
I pull it out on 4.
Okay.
Aim it down the left side, the left edge of the fairway, and just smash it.
Mm.
Because it's either going to go straight on that line. Again, at best, it's going to go 260. So it'll get me past the 150 marker, but it won't get me through the fairway. It's not going to go left in the river. So I can just smash it. Now, if I hit a fairway wood there, a hybrid, it can go over there. So it's going to be a slide right.
And on that hole, you probably don't want to hit your hybrid to go up in the air, have it spin a whole bunch, and then you're at the mercy of whatever's happening up there.
Right. So I love long irons and hybrids. I love hybrids and fairway woods that land really soft, fly high, and land soft. I just love that. I feel comfortable with that. Even in the wind, I don't mind it flying up high in the air.
Yeah.
I can fly it if I need to. But the 2-iron to me is a very specific club. It's not meant to go far. It's not meant to go up in the air. It's meant to go low, stay in front of me, stay in control, and I can hit it hard. Like under pressure, a lot of times they'll either go way too fast or they'll gear way down and swing too soft. I'm in the too soft category. And so that gives me permission to just giddy up, and I'm not going to hit it too far.
Sure. Love that.
If I hit it dead on my money, I'm in that 120 to that 115 to 125 range, which is my favorite yardage.
Yeah.
So, and if not, it's going to peel off to the right and avoid the tree, it's just a perfect club for me in a couple spots.
Worst case scenario, it seems like it lands on the right side of the fairway.
Yeah.
On 4.
Oh, yeah. That's worst case.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, stay tuned for a super in-depth club video, which I think we really should do. We should go through my set and go through your set and really talk about.
Maybe we'll even hit some shots
Srixon
for people too.
Yeah. We can even do it on out of the studio here at Franklin Bridge.
We can overlay some of the shots. We can take the video ahead of time, see the shots, and overlay them on top of the video.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. So stay tuned for that episode.
Tate's got some work to do.
Tate's got some work to do. Yeah. So let's talk about this USGA. This USGA debacle. So give us a little bit of a summary on what's happened, what came out, and then we'll kind of give our takes. We were texting about this earlier.
All right. So many of you know the USGA is talking about rolling back. That's the big thing that came out. Justin Thomas is adamantly opposed to it. Is this rolling back of the golf ball by 15 to 20 yards. Or 14 to 15 yards. So,
meaning that the balls that the tour players play will not fly as far.
That's correct. My initial gut reaction to that, as is I think the majority of the golf world, not all, is this is the dumbest thing ever. If the game is healthy, then why are we doing this?
Right.
And so that was my gut reaction. I was like, this is stupid. This is straight up stupid. We shouldn't do this. However, per the words of Mike Keith, voice of the Titans, when we got to hear him speak and talk about public speaking, is let's talk about the facts. Okay? So I think we got to take a couple of different angles. One is, what is the role and responsibility of the USGA and RNA, the PGA Tour, and the players and their team, right? Their coaches, their trainers, their whatever. So the job of the USGA is to rules and equipment, which is a rules thing, right? What are the rules of the game in keeping with the integrity of the game? They view themselves a lot of times as the gatekeepers of keeping the integrity of the game intact, the history of the game, the legacy of the game. Golf is a game both of power and of precision, both of might and
finesse.
Finesse, that was the word. Thank you. And so, some of the comments I saw, and these used to be my comments, so this is good for me to go back and study a little bit, right? Because I just get caught in the same threads, right? We just say things and repeat them without actually understanding them. And the first one is, the USGA has no bearing on the course setup, right? That is the job of the PGA Tour and the tournament directors, all right? So I used to take the angle of let's just change the design of golf courses. That's an architect thing, and the PGA Tour works with the architects and things like that. So a lot of times courses don't want to change their golf course, right? So there's a whole thing there. I used to take the there's a lot of different ways we can do it. Get it, got it. That's good. But that is not the responsibility of the USGA, and you cannot put that on the USGA. It's not their role, right? Stay in your lane, right? And then you have the players. What is the job of the players and their team? Figure out how to navigate that golf course and their body to the best of their ability. So what happened? Guys got stronger. They got bigger. The average height of the PGA Tour has grown substantially. The amount of training, if you take guys from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and you take all of them together, average them out against even the bottom 50 guys on the PGA Tour now in a fitness test, there's no contest. It's not even close. And the average height, right? They're just bigger and they're faster. That's the nature of every sport, right? Has equipment changed? Has technology improved? Yes. Are fairways mown tighter? Yes. Is the ball running faster? Yes. But that's not the job of the USGA, is to govern fairway speeds, right? That's not their job. So I think that's an important distinction we have to make. And then the other take is the PGA Tour, their job is to to produce the professional golf product, right? Let's be honest, it's entertainment. That's what it is. It's fun, and it's a fun game that we all get to play. But their job, and they have a mission to grow the game, and they have philanthropic objectives and things like that. Not to say that the USGA doesn't, but the USGA and R&A have a role and responsibility as they look at the game. What is our job? We're looking, and the thing that I also looked into this, everybody's like freaking out. I'm like, when is this going to go into effect? It's January of 2026, right? Like, it's not happening tomorrow or even next year or even the next year. They put this out there, and if you read through some of the articles they put out there, they're partly putting this out so that they can get feedback. And they knew what the feedback was. They're also not doing this flippantly. They've been spending 3 years of in-depth research. They know way more than all of us because that's their space. Their space is like, the game's getting longer and longer. Do we make golf courses obsolete? And that was the job of the players, right? Like, let's learn how to hit it farther. Let's train harder. And the USGA isn't saying to stop doing that. They're not telling players what they can and can't do. They're looking from what's the game look like 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. That's one of their quotes is 20, 40, 60 years from now. Our job is to be forward thinkers. Their job is basically to be the parent of a kid who's like, I get to do whatever I want. It's like, well, hang on a second. Like, that may be true, but you can't just let a kid run rampant.
That also doesn't mean that they get to tear down the game that's been built by these guys as well. So it's like, if we're going to take the other side of the coin with Justin Thomas being like, listen, like, I've trained so hard to be able to hit this ball in the center of the club and make it go as far as it can. And now you're telling me that you're about to take 10 to 15 yards off of all of that work that I just did?
Yeah.
What gives? What would you say to that if you're representative of the USGA?
I think if I was representing the USGA, I'd have a lot more knowledge. I can tell you that.
That's true.
But I would say I'm not stopping you from working hard. I'm just putting parameters on this thing and say, hey, to the degree that I have control over some things, to make those bunkers and those things stay in place, to help golf courses not get so long and so out of control where maintenance costs go through the roof. Obviously it's for tour events, but like that starts to affect all the golf courses. They understand that begins to affect and spill over everywhere. As those golf courses have to get longer, guess what's going to happen? Other ones are going to get longer. And is that sustainable for the game of golf?
Do you think that's the main reason why they've done it at this point?
No, I think they're looking at the game as a whole. Can we still keep it a game of precision? I don't think they're just trying to keep it, hey, we want guys to shoot even par only. You don't hear that in the thread they're talking about. And the measurement that they use is 127 miles an hour. And like the number of guys on the tour that are 127 miles an hour are zero other than Bryson, right? There's only one guy that's at 126. There's another guy at 125. The average on the PGA Tour is 115. But what they're looking at, the reason why they're using 127 is they're following clubhead speeds over time. Now, I don't think it's exponential, and I think we're going to start to see a leveling out.
I don't even think it's linear.
No. But what they're pointing out is, look, we're also looking at world long drive. These guys are pulling 145 mile an hour driver clubhead speeds. It's just like the 4-minute mile. Oh, that's impossible. Guys will never do that on the PGA Tour. Guys will never hit it 130 miles an hour, swing at 130 miles an hour on the PGA Tour. And I think there's a certain amount of that that's true. If you look at the length of the clubs, the guys, the USGA is like 46 inches is the max. It's like, well, our average on the PGA Tour anyway is 44.5, so like that didn't really do anything. But what they're doing there is to say, if it were to go in that direction, we're going to help put parameters on that thing to keep it shortened up. And we want to keep those, I mean, especially if you think of some of the iconic golf courses, Marion, some of the courses, St. Andrews, Augusta. Like Augusta's had to lengthen their golf course at times, which starts to change it.
Even Bay Hill after Bryson drove the lake.
Right.
It's like that's another thing that they're probably looking at. It's like
they're bigger, dude.
Yeah.
They are way bigger. The amount of stuff they can deadlift. Look at the size and thickness of Rahm, Tony Finau, Scotty Scheffler. I mean, the average height is pushing over 6 feet now. It was 5'11". It's like, well, if you look at 1967, I was like, yeah, 1967, the technology wasn't as good, which again is back to their lane, right? What are they putting parameters on? The other thing they mentioned is they haven't done anything to the ball parameters in over 20 years.
Yeah.
So they haven't brought the rules up to code to today's standards, right? It's like bringing, I mean, if we use your real estate, right? Like homes get brought up to code as more knowledge and more information comes out to keep homes safe, right? And to keep families safe. So
with that being said, though, asking Scott Hassey here, the individual, do you think that this will be for the betterment of the game?
I don't think
if it sticks too.
I don't think they should roll it back. I think they should cap it. I think working backwards is a mistake. Acushnet, which is the holding company for Titleist, is like it'll essentially roll the golf ball back to the 1990s, and they have some takes on why they don't do drivers, which you can read up on that. I encourage people to do that. Go ahead and read up on like what the USGA actually says. They're not trying to take away things. They're actually trying to keep the integrity of the game intact. It's like, it's just going to benefit the longer hitter. Well, any sort of technological improvements is always going to benefit the guy that's bigger, faster, stronger in every sport ever. Like,
here's where I have a problem with it is Justin Thomas brought up this in his interview where he was speaking out about it. He said, I think one of the cool parts about the game is that, you can go to a sporting goods store and buy the exact same ball that I'm going to play this weekend. And like, I see what he's saying and I don't, but my question to you would be, they've said that this is only going to impact the professional game and they're going to use, they're still going to use these hot balls. And not even saying that they're hot. They're just unregulated with the consumer as well. So just curious your thoughts on that and especially how that affects not only the pro game, but also the Korn Ferry Tour, the collegiate game, professional or competitive golf, all the way up until the professional level.
You have a lot of things that they're going to have to decide, regardless. But I think one of the main issues is where you have some events that because it will be instituted as a local rule. I think it's called an MLR, model local rule, where a tournament may decide. For instance, the U.S. Open, they may decide, hey, you're only allowed to use this golf ball. Well, now that changes feel, spin rates, how the ball flies.
Exactly.
It completely changes how these guys are going to play the game, which is fine if it's that way the entire year, all the time. They'll all adjust. It'll be fine. Now, who will it negatively impact? Will it help some of the shorter hitters? Maybe. Will it hurt some of the longer hitters? Maybe. The only way for us to know that truly is for it to happen. But I think the strongest point is, hey, if you're going to do it all the way. Right. And then you have to define at what level does that change. Like, okay, I don't think it makes sense if you only put it in the U.S. Amateur Championship. Okay, well, those guys are playing in college tournaments, local events at their club. Which ball do they use? Are they at a disadvantage by using, hey, I'm going to get ready for that tournament. I'm going to play this other amateur event in the state or regionally, and I'm going to use the ball that's going to prep me for that, but I'm going to lose this tournament because I don't have the right ball. But we can't know that until we have all that information.
I'd be curious to see what level they start implementing that ball change at. Because let's just say they decide to implement it at the PGA Tour level. Then it's like, okay, I'm curious if guys get their card, if they make it easier to keep a card for a certain amount of time in order for these people to get adjusted and acclimated to the new ball, or if they start at the Corn Ferry level. It's where you come in and you start acclimating to those rules before you hit the big stage, which I could see happening too.
Well, and I think one of the things that people get all upset about is you think these guys haven't thought of this.
Yeah.
Like, they're not stupid. They've thought of this.
Yeah.
They're just trying to see where all the pushback is going to be.
Which it's crazy that the rule is going to be implemented in 26.
Right. We have 3 years to figure this thing out. 4 years.
Do you think there's a world in which they don't even follow through with it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you watch companies do things like that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to roll this out, and then, like, the feedback's terrible, and then it just kind of falls away and disappears.
It's like the Apple car is going to get released in 2025.
What they might see in the next year and a half is that, like, distances start to level out, and then that rule doesn't apply. They test iron by iron at a certain speed at 120 mile an hour clubhead speed based on these parameters, which is iron by iron is a machine that produces basically the exact same thing, and the ball cannot exceed 317 yards. That's how they measure it at 120 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Well, they moved the testing up to 127 miles an hour, and it will not exceed 317 yards. Now, that number is very specific based on the design of golf courses, right? Like, it's built into, like, how can we maintain and still have these golf courses not be obsolete?
Not only that, but you're also thinking about geographically, where is this tournament getting played, the conditions, the altitude, like everything that goes into it as well.
There's so much they're looking at, I'm sure, and the data sheets that they have are probably very extensive.
Yeah.
They're probably miles long if you lined them up. And I came in just saying, USGA, you're an idiot. I'm like, well, that's like somebody looking at, me giving a golf lesson, hearing about Scott gave a golf lesson with his eyes closed. You're an idiot. It's like, well, if you listen to the episode with Jamie George, it's actually an exercise in me learning to improve myself, right?
Right.
Regardless of the outcome. So it's not – context is everything. So I'm at this juncture with the knowledge that I have and with the, day and a half I've had to think about it, if that, half a day. I'm at the juncture, don't roll the ball back, cap it at where it's at, whatever that means. Cap it at 127 mile an hour, maybe move to 127 and you make it to 327, whatever. Maybe you have to roll it back, but right now it's cap them, don't let them get any longer than they currently are at X speed, and if a guy's able to exceed that speed, props to him.
That also gives people like JT the ability to say, like, all right, you're not going to change the game. You're just telling me from now on. It's kind of like a parent telling you, like, from now on, you can't do it. It's like, okay, fine. Like, I've gotten away with what I can get away with, but now there's a standard getting set.
And so the bifurcation would be more natural in the sense of it starts now. For any advancements now just go to the public.
Yeah.
And I think you make it only for professional events, right? Like, baseball has bifurcation. They're not hitting aluminum bats, and you can't cork bats, and you can't do, like...
We can talk all day about the scandal with the corked balls and everything that's going through right now, too.
Right.
So it is happening in different leagues as well.
So,
yeah, you're right.
I went from, like, being adamantly opposed to having an understanding of what each entity, what they're responsible for. And if you want to be upset about course setups, be upset at the PGA Tour and the tournament directors. That's not a USGA thing. The USGA is responsible for the rules and the integrity of the game. They've tried to simplify pace of play by going from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. Different rules with how the ball moves on the green. They've taken drops from being shoulder high where the bounce can be totally unlucky to being a more fair bounce by dropping at knee height. So, like, you can take whatever angles you want on any of those things. They're doing their job within the context of what it is that they're trying to do. I think one thing we have to come at it with is not assume they're the devil, right? Like, don't just trash them. I see where Thomas is, though, right?
Yeah.
Of, like, if it's so good, it's like, yeah, but they're more forward-thinking than we are as players, right? And they're not saying you haven't made those gains, and congrats to you, but what does the game become? And we also have to look at, they're probably also looking at a safety standpoint. What if they don't put these things into place, and in 2026, 2027, or 2030, then they decide to try and roll a ball back because guys are hitting it with so much speed that when they hit it out of play, it becomes more dangerous for players. I mean, it's already dangerous, right, for spectators, but like at what point there's a lot of things they have to answer, and I think coming at it with a very short answer is and I was foolish to come at it with this is just dumb.
Yeah.
That was my initial gut reaction.
You've honestly changed my mind about it as well.
I'm opposed to rolling back.
Yeah. Just let's go at it with a clear head. And the question that I posed, and we'll end with this, is that the USGA, instead of making changes to the golf courses themselves or the regulations with the golf courses, they're pawning this off onto the manufacturer to fix the game. If you say like the equipment manufacturers, but you made it very clear that that's not their job in the first place.
That's not right.
The other thing too is that
you can't put that on them.
Those courses, like, listen, we're all for the best game that can be played on the brightest stage, but at the same time, those golf courses have to get used by the members or the public or whoever plays on them anyway. So there's there's a lot that. It's not like we can just do you remember that U.S. Open at Pebble where they took out like the entire course, or 3 or 4 holes to make the driving range that year. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And so it's like you can't just go into every single time the tour goes and stops on your track to change up the whole thing and then put it back together again.
We say that nobody will hit it 130 yards. Even Justin Thomas, like, if you can hit it 127, props to you. It's like, JT, in 10 years from now, that may very well be the new norm. We say it won't. It's just like the 4-minute mile. Nobody will ever break the 4-minute mile. Nobody will ever be swinging on the PGA Tour 130 miles an hour. If they can control that puppy and hit it straight at 130 miles an hour, look out.
Well, and with the new carbon wood era that's coming out, that TaylorMade and Callaway have really, forefronted. There's just no telling where they're going to be able to put weight and CG to be able to blow it up.
I'm not going to be able to give the good argument that you have to read through it. I can go back and try and find it, but the argument that they made of not putting more restrictions on the club, there was a specific reason why they're going for the ball and not for the club.
Yeah.
And I believe it has something to do with the percentage change. Like the longer hitter could lose 20 to 25, I believe, whereas your average hitter may only lose 14 or 15, which actually closes the gap between the longest and the average.
I never thought about that too. Yeah.
So that was one of my takes. It's like, well, if you do that, it's just going to be longer. It's just going to be the one that benefits the most. But there may be a restriction that happens with the slower player is actually able to be a slightly closer, and that 10 yards can make all the difference.
Yeah.
Right. So
100%.
If I can close that gap by 10 yards, even though I'm back further, so are they, and they're back more.
Yeah.
Like that could be a benefit to the player, but I think if you do it to the golf club, that percentage is a more precipitous drop across the board. But if you do it with just the ball, there's a better description out there than that, so don't quote me for fact there. But I'll end mine with this. In the discussion just now, I'm kind of reminded of one of my favorite professors in college, public finance and public policy. Start every class with, she could ask any question you want. And she ended the semester, she handed us our final, and she said, what I hope you all got out of this class this semester was that there are no easy answers and there are consequences to every single one. You just got to choose which ones you're willing to live with.
That's great.
And
Love that.
so my current take, don't roll it back. Keep it as it is. Find a way to draw that line. I don't know how to do that. But I'm still open to changing as I study more and learn more. And honestly, until I see it actually tested, like, hey, can you give me one of those golf balls that rolls back? Let me see how I play different. I don't know. I'm as clueless as the next guy.
Fair enough. Well, we'll end it there. Appreciate you guys listening. As always, make sure to either rate the podcast if you're on Apple, give it 5 stars and leave a review. If you're on Spotify, just click follow. And if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching. You got to see Scott's new set. So if you guys want to go and check that out, go over to YouTube, search No Mulligans, and click on this episode. You'll see Scott's bag with the new ZX5 Mark II driver in there. So
if you want to try to hit the 2-iron.
Yeah, come on by.
You
there you go. From Jack, Scott, and Tate here in the studio at Franklin Bridge. We'll see you on the next one. It's been the No Mulligans Podcast. Peace.
There's no rules. Shoot 'em over short. There's one rule.